All right, so we're gonna go through how to change your tube inside here and take off your rear wheel. First thing we wanna do is shift it down into the lowest gear here. Okay, I'll explain why right after I take the wheel off. So all you have to do is just get down to the lowest, turn the crank until it's in the lowest gear. Did that is so when you take the wheel in and out, you know exactly which gear it went in, and it's in the smallest, so it pushes the derailleur out of the way. Flip the bike over, really easy. Grab the rear brake, pull. Maybe set it on a piece of cardboard or something. We all don't have AstroTurf at home. Set it down. If you got mirrors on them, take the mirrors off before you do that. Or just protect it with something. Now you're gonna need your wire cutter, same as when you built the bike, and the 19mm. If you don't have one, it's good to have a 19mm to take your wheel off. The only thing different really about this than a bicycle is you have a power wire going to the motor. They're not, don't be afraid of it. It's got a cable tie. Cut it, take it off. Got a cable tie right here. Cut it, take it off. It's got a motor plug. Okay? I like just pulling that motor wire, comes right out. There's an arrow on this, and there's an arrow on the other side too. So now we'll take off the axle nuts. If you notice the axle nuts, I want you to look at the axle nuts first, and you will see the way that this torque washer is in here, then a regular washer, then the nut. Must be in this orientation when you put it back. What that torque washer does is when the motor spins, it doesn't spin the axle. That stops it from spinning. All right, so just take this thing loose. It should be really, really tight. You don't need to take this one all the way out. Take it out to about there. That has the derailleur on it. Don't be afraid of your derailleur. Okay, just push your cable out of the way. Get to that nut. Yep. Loosen that nut. Again, these should be really, really tight. This one, I'm going to show you the torque washer after I have this bolt out. I'm going to take this one completely off. You don't really have to. It's easier for the derailleur guard to clear it than what it is. It's the plate, washer, and nut. Let me pull the derailleur out of the way, and you can see exactly the way the torque washer's in here. To pull the derailleur out of the way, it's easy. Just grab this thing with your thumb and pull it. Okay, it's out of the way. Now you can just grab the wheel, and the wheel comes straight out. Okay? If you do, the torque washer does fall off. Look at the other side. See how it's pointing up? This one points up, obviously the same way. Look at it, it's got a notch on one side. If you look at this side that we didn't take all the way off, the notch is facing up. Okay? So I want the notch to face up, slides right on, done. All right, so now we want to go ahead and, most of the time you take this off, your tire's already flat, okay? So say you want to change your tires or something. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the valve cap. We're gonna take like maybe the 3mm that's in your toolkit or something, and let the air out of your tires, like when you were a kid and you did to your buddy. So he couldn't catch you. Or you want to slow your friends down, so it's letting air out of their tires. Well, this will take a little bit of time, so. Alright, so we choose to use a tire lever like this. You're going to need a little tire lever to get your tire off. And these work super simple. Just put it underneath and just spin it off. Okay. Once you spin it off, you don't have to take off both sides. Okay. Take off the one, pull the tube out. This one's obviously still got some air in it. Pull the tube to there and push the valve, because you still got the valve through here, out, so you don't rip it off. Then you pull the tube out. Okay. You want to inspect the inside of your tire to make sure whatever you gave you the flat is gone. Okay. I would go over it slowly and look at it as you're going, because you may see something sticking out. You don't want. Okay. If I see a big giant nail, obviously I pulled the nail out. So I'm visually inspecting it as I'm wiping it inside it. Okay. You find a little tiny thorn and stuff, you want to try to get it completely out. You want to inspect the rim liner at the same time. Just make sure it's covering all the holes. before you put your tube back in and call it a day. So set it back on side. Always be careful when you set it on either side so don't bang the rotor or mess up the wire. So just gently on side. Now before we put your new tube in, we want to give it some air. So just hook it to an inflator or a hand pump, whatever you got. We choose to use a little inflator. We want to pump it up so there's a little bit of shape to it. Maybe get it to about there. Just so it's got some shape to it. Now, find the hole. Right there. What I do is I push this through this way. Take the valve, push it through the hole. Okay? Now, peel the tire back over the tube. So it's like that. And then just push this tube in the tire. So that's why we gave it some shape, is so we didn't pinch it between here and the tube. And then this usually mounts pretty easy. Just push these down together, okay, until you get to about here. If you can muscle it on like that. So if I had a tough time getting it on here, I can take my tire lever again, slide it under here, push it back on. They're pretty easy to get on and off. All right, so then I want to hook my inflator back up to it. Put about 24 pounds of air in it. The reason I'm kind of holding it, watching it, is see that black line? We want to make sure that black line's pretty equal all the way around the tire. Full space and seats up against it, and we check the other side. We also want to notice that there is a direction on this tire, direction to face the right way. I'll show you what that means in a second. And it's starting to seat up against the rim, so we just want to make sure that this line is pretty equal all the way around. Okay, and if it isn't, you can just squeeze it in. But whenever you squeeze it in, it'll pop out the other side. Just kind of keep it equal. And then make sure the other side is. I just kind of feel it all the way around. You can feel that little lip. That looks fine. So I'm going to put it back. And we're going to fill it the rest of the way. 24 pounds, which is what your tire should be. Put up. Then put the cap back on. Good to go. Okay. Now before we put the wheel back on, we still want to make sure, because I was double check and triple check, that these torque washers are lined up properly. So this side usually has the nut still on it. This side will have the nut off of it. Okay. So when we put it back in the bike, remember it was down in the first little tiny gear? We're going to put it back in the same way. So we're going to, remember what I did, pull the derailleur out of the way, and put it right on that little gear, and then set it right in. It's going to sit in right like that. See how the torque washer filled in the gap? Come around the other side. Got a torque washer filled in the gap. Your wire's right here. We're going to fish your wire down here, and we're going to plug it into the motor. Okay, remember, arrow to arrow. Okay, we don't really. And then it'll slide together. It'll slide in almost probably 1/8 of an inch. And then we're going to cable tie it back down to here. We're going to cable tie it over here. Okay, reason you're doing that is so it doesn't hit the caliper or the rotor at all. So we're going to cable tie it underneath this. Bring it back. Get the wire. And then I'm not going to tighten this one yet. You get it like that. Now we'll grab this one. And we're going to go either way through the hole and up. Back out of the way. And we're going to cable tie this out of the way of the rotor. Okay. Nice and out of the way of the rotor. This one's out of the way of everything else. And then we can snug this cable tie down. It doesn't need to be rock tight. We take our cutters, get these things out of the way a little bit. Cut them a little bit. Cut it. Push this one so you don't see the head of it. Okay. And tighten this one for right now because we're going to do the other side first. Show you how to put it all back together. And snug. You're all good to go there. Guard first. Okay. This goes so it protects the derailleur from being whacked. You put the washer on after that. Put the nut on after that. Tighten this down. What I want to do is I want to take one last look before I tighten these things all the way down. Okay? Because I'm going to make these things really tight. So right now it's still just snug. I want to look back at that torque washer and make sure it's still in the right spot. Okay, which it is. Derailleur guard is still in the right spot. Now we want to take this and make it tight. I'm not going to put all my weight on it yet. Get it tight. Go around the other side and make it tight. So what I want to do is spin the wheel. Make sure the brake's not rubbing. Brake's not rubbing on this. Perfect. If it does need a brake adjustment, we do have a macro for that. Turn the crank. Make sure that sounds fine. And it does. We flip the bike back over. So set it on the back tire. Grab the handlebars. Have your hand ready for the brake. Bring it down. You can actually control how fast it comes down by the brake. Set it down. Okay. Now I want to tighten those nuts. Put it on. And we want to tighten it down. Get this thing as tight as it can be. Okay, if you need to put it over here and put enough weight on it, go ahead. You cannot strip this bolt. Okay, it can be as tight as can be, as long as you're using a good 19mm wrench to tighten it with. Okay, tighten this side. That's as tight as you can get it. Once you get it that tight, you can actually pull the wheel off the ground on the kickstand, spin it around, sure it sounds good. You could roll it through the gears. And then hit the brake. Make sure the brake's working before you take it for a ride. After you get the whole thing done and your wheel on, you want to still make sure that bead is okay. If that bead is not okay, I recommend flipping the bike back over, letting air out of it, getting it to the right spot, and then putting air back in it. Okay, it's pretty simple. It can be, I wouldn't say aggravating, but just have to make sure it's right, because that's the only thing between you and the ground.